The trip turns into a nightmare. A young girl vanishes, a frantic father calls the police, and soon an Amber Alert flashes across screens. Hours later, the story takes a horrifying turn. The masked men the father described never existed, and the truth about what happened is far more disturbing. This is the chilling case of Luchiano Fertellan, a wealthy Montreal businessman accused of murdering his 9-year-old daughter, Molina. In the summer of 2025, the Fertellans left Montreal for what was meant to be a family getaway. Friends described Molina as a happy, curious child who loved swimming and drawing. To outsiders, the family seemed perfect. But neighbors later revealed a different picture: frequent arguments and a mother who appeared weighed down by something unspoken. On the third night of the trip, everything changed. Around midnight, Luchiano called police in a panic. He claimed masked men had broken into their rental home and taken Molina. He said he fought to stop them, but they disappeared with his daughter. At 3:32 a.m., an Amber Alert was issued. Molina's face lit up phones, TVs, and highway boards across the region. Police officers, K-9 units, and volunteers launched a massive search. For the first 24 hours, the community clung to hope. Meanwhile, reporters swarmed the area. Luchiano gave emotional statements, insisting that his daughter had been targeted. He described the abductors vaguely: tall, dressed in black, their faces covered. But when investigators pressed for details, his answers faltered. Why take only Molina? Why hadn't anyone else seen suspicious men or vehicles? And why was there no sign of forced entry? 2 days later, hope shattered. Searchers discovered a small body floating in a nearby pond. It was Molina. The autopsy confirmed the worst. She had died from asphyxiation due to drowning. The case that began as a frantic race to find a missing child was now a homicide investigation. And suspicion turned toward the man who had first sounded the alarm: her father. As detectives pieced together the timeline, cracks in Luchiano's story widened. Nearby surveillance cameras showed no masked men, no getaway vehicle. Digital evidence told a darker truth. GPS records placed Luchiano near the pond at the very time he claimed to be searching for his daughter. When confronted, his behavior shifted. Detectives described him as cold and defensive, no longer the frantic father he portrayed. Forensic teams then examined the rental home. They found no forced entry, no fingerprints from outsiders, no sign of a struggle. The masked men had never existed. On September 5, 2025, days after Molina's body was found, police arrested Luchiano Fertellan for first-degree murder. The news stunned the community. How could a father, a man of wealth and influence, be accused of such horror? The motive remains unclear. Some speculate marital issues, financial troubles, or a desire to exert control. Prosecutors argue that whatever the reason, a young life was taken, and her father was responsible. The case quickly crossed borders, capturing headlines in both Canada and the United States. True crime forums filled with outrage and disbelief. Why invent a story about masked abductors? Experts believe it was either a desperate attempt to divert suspicion or a panicked lie told after realizing the gravity of what he had done. But the false narrative had consequences. It misled investigators and wasted hours that could have been spent focusing on the real crime scene. Today, Luchiano sits behind bars awaiting trial, set for January 5, 2026. Prosecutors are expected to present damning evidence: GPS data, forensic findings, and the lack of forced entry. The defense has revealed little. Legal experts suggest they may argue diminished capacity or challenge the timeline, but most agree the evidence is heavily stacked against him. This trial will draw massive public attention. It is a case that blends wealth, betrayal, and the ultimate violation of trust: a father accused of murdering his child. Amid the media storm, it's vital to remember the victim. Molina Fertellan was just 9 years old. Teachers described her as bright and kind. Friends said she adored animals and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Her life ended in a way no child should ever endure. And the person accused of ending it was the man who should have protected her above all. This case leaves us with one haunting question: how well do we ever truly know the people closest to us? On the surface, the Fertellans looked like a family enjoying vacation. Behind closed doors, something darker was unfolding. Something that ended in tragedy for a little girl who deserved so much better. As January 2026 approaches, the world will be watching to see if justice is served for Molina. Until then, remember this: sometimes the most terrifying monsters don't lurk in shadows. Sometimes they live inside our very own homes.